Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today? Let's do it. Graveyard shift workers of Reddit. What's the creepiest thing you've seen while at work? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I used to work the night shift at a nursing home. The entire experience in and of itself was terrifying. I'd be sitting at the nurse's station between bed checks, and someone's call light would go off. It's pitch black in this nursing home except for a few lights on here and there for you to see. You get up, pager in hand, and head to the room, only to be ambushed by the old man with Alzheimer's who thinks it's time for breakfast. And during the lull, you're constantly checking the hallways, flipping lights on and off, swearing you're always hearing Mr. Old Man's breathing, even though you just put him back to bed. You know, people think Five Nights at Freddy's isn't real? Bullshit. I used to do graveyard shifts at a suicide hotline. We covered only a small city, so unless it was the holidays, the busy season, there was only one person on at night to man the phones. The organization that ran the hotline wasn't based out of some office building. Instead, it was an old house that had been converted. The phone room was in the basement. We had a person who was a repeat caller, and interestingly enough, used to actually work at the hotline. Anyway, he used to call only during the graveyard shifts, and the calls would start off normal, but then he would start to ask personal questions. Then he would tell whoever was on the phone that he was in the building. He would say how he got in, climbed through a window, and he would say that he was in the top level of the building and about to make his way downstairs. Imagine the movie Scream. However, this was in the early 90s, before the movie even came out. It was terrifying when he would call. I'm a security officer who has worked overnight on multiple occasions. I was doing security at a dog food manufacturing company in the middle of September. Because this site is an industrialized area, I'm literally the only person in the middle of bum F Egypt, basically running security on millions of dollars worth of machinery. Anyways, the security office is a shed about 15 feet by 12 feet. The shed is outside a gated and barbed wire fence. There is only one road that leads to and out of the factory, and it's about 800 feet long before a big old bend, which eventually leads to a road in the middle of nowhere. One light inside the shed and very quiet. I was watching a movie at about 2:30 when I hear some rustling outside the shed. I open the door, nobody is around. 30 minutes later, there is a legitimate knock at my shed. I grab my weapon, nobody should be in the area till 7 a.m. I open the door and nobody is there again. I called HQ to ask if I was supposed to meet someone there, and explained what happened. They said nobody would be there, which immediately alarmed me. 4 a.m. rolls around, and I have to do a patrol. I open the door, and about 500 feet down the road was a person, just standing in the middle of the road, not moving, simply standing in the middle of nowhere. And he had something in his hand. However, it was dark, and he was far. I took one step out of the shed, one step, and the figure started sprinting toward me. Quickly, I shut the door and peer outside the window. I drew my weapon again and simply pointed at the door. Now, as if this wasn't weird enough, I'm sitting and waiting for anything when all of a sudden the sky started to get really bright. Slowly but surely, it got brighter and brighter and brighter, like it was 9 a.m. Then, just as suddenly as the light came, it was gone. I never saw the figure. I don't know where the light came from, but that shit lit up the sky completely. Was working at an alternate assignment on night shift. I was not at my office, but at a shared station inside a secure facility. The company has a voice-operated receptionist that will direct outside callers to the appropriate extension. This extension is not part of that system as nobody owns it. Anyone calling me would have been directed to my empty office. At about 1 to 2 a.m. my phone rings. The call display is very strange. The number is not a valid internal number. It is not a valid external number. It, along with the name, is a series of broken characters and bits of illuminated 7-segment display. Complete nonsense, whatever. The phone system probably shit the bed and sent corrupted caller ID data. So I answered the phone. Nothing. Silence. Until it began. The Ghostbusters theme in its entirety. Then silence. I have absolutely no idea. I worked nights at a hotel for 10 years. There is a stairwell that leads up to the 3rd floor meeting room, and once you get to the top, you can simply glance to the left and see through the window of the meeting room doors. I'm doing a quick walk around at 2 a.m. one night, and I reach the top and glance left quickly and turn to the right to keep marching. But wait, the lights in the room were on, and there was a middle-aged woman with long dark hair and a floral print dress sitting at a table staring out the window toward me. But there shouldn't have been. I turned back around and finished my double take. The room was dark, locked, and empty as it should have been. This was all in the space of 3 seconds, but I swear I saw someone in there. It still freaks me out to this day. I had a brief stint as a police officer in rural Wyoming. I elected to do plenty of night shifts because they were easiest. I was usually called to maybe a bar fight at 2 a.m. or a DD shortly after. But mostly it was my partner and I sitting in the car bullshitting. Not to mention, a summer night in Wyoming is something to be savored like a good wine. They're always beautiful and relaxing, with a smell so fresh that it really is like wine for your nose. We got a call one night about someone reporting suspicious activity, reporting what sounded like a woman screaming. We look at each other with an, oh boy, time to go arrest another wife-beating shitbag look. We get there, and the woman reports her son had heard the screaming coming from a creek bed about half a mile from their house. She urges us to stay and hear it, and sure enough, after a couple of minutes of sitting on their porch, it comes loud and clear from the creek bed. We head down there, shining flashlights everywhere and screaming and yelling, not wanting to surprise a mountain lion enjoying a late-night snack run or the like. The screams are getting louder as we approach. Each time there's maybe a couple of minutes between them. We get to the creek bed and the sound stops. We look at each other and shrug, blowing it off as a mountain lion, which has some truly creepy sounding calls. We start heading back to the house to tell the resident to relax. As we're heading back, the yells start again, but it's not coming from the creek bed. It literally sounded like it was all around us, right on top of us. This was in a field with short prairie grass. Nothing could hide effectively that was large enough to make a sound like that. We shine our flashlights everywhere and can see nothing. But even as we're shining them everywhere, the sound continues. The frequency picked up since it came on top of us to once every 15 to 30 seconds. It was really high-pitched and loud enough that each one hurt our ears. We look at each other. My partner's eyes are wide as hell, and he tells me mine are as well. We're both freaked out. It's a moonless night with only our flashlights to light around us, with a noise that we cannot identify seeming to have followed us from the creek bed. As soon as we stepped out of the field and onto the dirt road, the screaming just stopped. It was totally silent. No crickets, no owls hooting, no frogs croaking. There was absolutely no sound, aside from our footsteps, like every animal there had been startled by something. At this point, we just decide to get the hell out of there and head back to the house to tell them if the yelling continues to call dispatch again, and they'll be right over. Thankfully, they didn't call back. I'm a firefighter. One day we got a call at 3 a.m. for a CO alarm by an old woman who was a frequent flyer. We get there, and she's just sitting up on the couch watching TV. Apparently, this is normal for her to be up this late. So my two partners decide to look at the CO alarm and replace the batteries while I go outside and start up the air monitor. I get it set up and walk in the house, and my lieutenant walks with me as we monitor the air. As we walk around, we see a bunch of pictures of her deceased husband. He wasn't there, so I'm guessing I went in every room. And we get to the kitchen. In the kitchen, the stairs to the basement started there, and across from that opening was a door to the backyard. Now, she lived in the country, so not many people were around her. So I continued monitoring, and I go to the door to the backyard, thinking it may be another room to check. And I look in the door's window when it just makes this loud slamming noise, like someone punched it, but no one was there, just an empty field. My lieutenant heard this and was like, "What the did that door just slam at you?" I said, "Yeah." So, being the rookie, he said I can go into the basement by myself to check the air, and he'll meet up with my other partner, talking to the lady. The basement was a Michigan basement, and it was creepy as shit. Only had one light and a ton of antiques. So I zoomed through because I was creeped out and went up to report there was no CO. And we advised her to buy new alarms. I then asked if she had any dogs. Maybe I didn't see it jump on the door. And she said, "No, why?" I told her, and she just calmly said, "Oh, that's Eugene. He's a ghost and moves stuff around and does things like that. I'm used to it." Never figured out anything else. Haven't been back, but that certainly was interesting. Really long story, but it's pretty intense and disgusting. I used to be an EMT, worked 24-hour shifts, which had its perks, slow days when you literally got paid to sleep or eat or read, 4 days off every week, etc. It also had its downside. Getting out of bed to run a call at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. sucks. Being sleep-deprived sucks. Getting calls that are way outside your scope of practice sucks. One time, I got the perfect combination of these three situations. I had run call after call with no downtime from sometime in the early morning to about 1 a.m. Just one of those really rare, super crazy days. Got back to the station, fell asleep immediately. 2 a.m. rolls around, and I'm paged for a call at a nursing home a bit down the road for trouble breathing, emesis. Note, emesis is a fancy word for puke. I'm so loopy from the lack of sleep, I don't really mentally prepare for a call of that nature, thankfully. I'm thinking either a nurse at the facility or the paramedics with the fire department will get to the call before my partner and I. EMTs are at the bottom of the food chain in the county. I'm really expecting to walk in and find an elderly person a bit under the weather and maybe take them to the hospital if the staff or the patient thinks it's that serious. Anyway, I hop in the rig and we head over to the nursing home. We go through the motions of unloading the gurney, checking for a room number, etc. I head down the hall and walk into the room just in time to see an elderly man, maybe in his 80s or 90s, sit straight up in his bed and explode black, greasy vomit all over the room. Not like one heave either. The guy is spraying the shit everywhere. I was so caught off guard, it took me a second to even react and get to him. As I'm trying to assist the guy, sucking the shit out of his mouth so he can breathe, getting him on his side so he doesn't choke, the Black Death is getting on my face, down my shirt, everywhere. He's panicking, grabbing my arms and making the worst noises I've ever heard. It was in chaos. Coffee ground emesis occurs when a patient has a lower gastrointestinal bleed, and the red color I think the hema has been digested by acid in the GI tract. This is a 911 lights and sirens. This shit is for real. Call. And the nursing home has called an independent basic life support EMT company to handle it. Due to the local scope of practice, I cannot push drugs, I cannot intubate, etc. I'm a janitor, trying to keep a dying man afloat. Amidst everything, I honestly remember stopping for a few seconds and just staring at my partner and waiting to wake up, because there's no way that any of it could actually be happening. Honestly, I was thinking if I was having a nightmare because of all the craziness of such a busy day. Unfortunately, I was not asleep. Just as the guy totally fell out, the fire department came and took over. Due to patient confidentiality, I couldn't even ask what the end result was, but I think I know how it ended. I mean, I'm sure you rather hope you were dreaming or having a nightmare, because that type of projectile vomiting sounds serious and terrible and not something you want to see at that time of day, but I guess that's the job, so thank you for what you do, and hope it worked out for the old man. I was working security at a very large government building compound on graveyard shift. It's just shy of 1.5 million square feet, but they moved almost all of the agencies out, so even during the day there were about 150 employees, so the whole place is empty and very spooky. We would regularly hear weird stuff like footsteps or a small movement out of the corner of your eye. We would also have the motion detectors in certain locations go off at night, and when you would go and check it out, some of the lights that also had motion detectors would be on, even though you hadn't gone down that hallway in a while. So obviously everyone said that it had to be a ghost, and a lot of people refused to work there at night. Well, one night I was working with a guy that was a pretty big, no-nonsense type guy. He went down by the old child daycare area, doing his normal round, but when he came back, he was pale white and looked like he had just seen a ghost, which is actually what he told me. He said he was just poking around, and when he turned a corner, he saw a ghost at the end of the hallway, just staring at him. Now we are armed, but this guy decided to just turn and run away when he saw it. After that incident, we decided that we had to catch the ghost. So a few days later, we assembled a team and went down there looking for this ghost. Well, we found it, but it turned out not to be a ghost, but a former employee of the building that had his home foreclosed on and decided that it was a good idea to just sleep in the old daycare area since it wasn't used anymore. He got arrested, and the guy that saw the ghost and ran off got fired. I was a janitor when I was younger. This was a huge building with several different companies in it. I was vacuuming the 10th floor when I saw a computer turn on. I'd passed it no more than a half hour earlier, and all the screens were off. I figured I'd bumped into the desk or something earlier and woke it up. A few minutes later, I get a call from my friend or coworker blaming me for typing to spook him. He was running a floor polisher in the lobby, and apparently one of the elevators showed up with no one in it. Later that night, we closed up the building, and after trying to activate the security system, it warned us that a door by the loading dock was open. Sure as hell, it was held open with a rolled-up magazine. Neither of us would have done this. It was a secure building, requiring keycards for almost every door. Chills kind of go down my spine. We piece everything together and come to the conclusion that someone who should not have been up there was up there, with me alone. On the way down, we assumed they accidentally hit the lobby button, but they got off at another floor, then went down to level B and snuck out of the back. We immediately call the building manager. He hauls ass over and assesses the situation. Some higher-ups who were renting the office space show up freakishly fast, As I'm lying in bed, thoughts about that was and what they were doing raced through my head. Someone stealing data? CIA? Did we catch a spook? The very next night, there were several security guards watching us like hawks. The entire situation was very odd and very hushed. I used to work the graveyard shift managing a hotel. Usually I was the only employee on premises during the shift. And because it was a nice hotel with mostly regular guests, I usually felt very comfortable. One night, when I ran the night audit, I realized that the person working the shift before me let a man check into the hotel, even though his credit card was declined. Normally that would be fine. We would just have to take a cash deposit in lieu of a credit card. But the person working before me failed to do so. It was about 1 a.m., and I needed to get a valid form of payment from the guest. So I called his room and asked him to come downstairs with either a valid credit card or cash. He came downstairs and told me he gave his credit card already, and that even though it was declined, that didn't matter. I explained again that it was declined, so not valid, and that he can either give another credit card or a cash deposit, or he would need to leave. The conversation went in circles, and I was becoming extremely frustrated. He started raising his voice at me, and then threatened to arm me. I'm a short, petite girl in my 20s, and this guy was tall and looked quite overpowering physically. He could easily have jumped over the counter as soon as he threatened me. I ran into the back office, locked the door, and called the police. They arrived quickly, and I explained the situation, and one of the officers escorted him to his room to get his belongings, and then they made him leave. One of the officers stayed in the parking lot until my shift was over, in case he tried to come back. I worked the night shift on an ambulance for a while. One night, we got a call to take a mental patient from the ER back to her facility. She had thought she was having a heart attack or something. She was fine as far as I could tell, but a patient we ran into when we dropped her off freaked me the fuck out. We were at the nurse's station getting some paperwork done when, out of the corner of my eye, I see someone walk up and squeeze my partner's arm. He said, "Hello," very casually, so I figured it was a nurse he knew or something. It was 4 or 5 a.m., and I was too tired to care or even really look up. Then she walked around the stretcher and squeezed my arm. Her face still haunts me to this day. When I saw a blank stare, there was not a person behind it. Imagine the most intense, uncanny valley feeling you've ever had, and it will still pale in comparison to the feeling she gave me. There just wasn't anyone there. Terrifying. Worked midnights at a mental health inpatient unit. One night I'd take a shortcut to get to the pharmacy to get meds for a patient to be released. The pharmacy shut down at midnight, and we wouldn't be able to get the samples so the patient could be released. This was sort of an unusual thing because patients weren't usually discharged at 11 p.m., which was the start of my shift, but the attending was running late that day due to some emergency. I take the shortcut through an area of the hospital that was once used as a transitional care unit for the elderly. The area has since been shut down because of low patient census. It was creepy because it looked like people had just up and left suddenly. The unit hadn't been cleaned out and was eerie. Some items were being stored along the hallways, excess IV poles, beds, etc. This shortcut saved time because the only other way to get to the pharmacy was to go to the ground floor and back. As I walked through the semi-dark, abandoned hallway, just as I passed the nurse's station with all the call lights, a light went off, indicating someone had pushed the button in one of the rooms. The system was an older push-button system, where the light would screech and light up to the corresponding room number. I sped through that hallway as fast as I could. I'm thankful that the call system wasn't more modern and equipped with sound. Currently at a graveyard shift for a security company, the creepiest thing I've seen is when I was doing a patrol around the building. It's at the edge of town, surrounded by fields. I was walking back to the guard shack, and there was a sound behind me like something bumped into the metal containers. I turn around and start walking to the sound, doing my job for once. I go to it and see nothing. Then I hear a scuffle behind me. I'm freaked out and have my mag light in my hand, ready to swing. I turn around and there's nothing there. Then I shine the light around and happen to catch a glimpse of a coyote. I've asked the owner of the site, and he said a pack of them made this location their home, and things are pretty brave and get close to humans every now and then.